Hi, guys. Welcome to this very, very special episode, which you already can see is special because it's not Serena inviting you to it, but it's me who's saying hi. Hi. I'm I'm really happy and honored that Vero has invited me to do the show with her. And yeah, why is it special? Because you are releasing your brand new album today, and
Yes.
it is out today. It is out on Dark Tunes, and it comes on digital and very special CD, and for some lucky few, even with some cider. This is something we have to talk about later as well. But before we dive into everything and talk about your influences, you also released your brand new video today, and I think let's take a look at that and then dive into our discussion.
Water was running, children were running, you were running out of time. Under the mountain, a golden fountain, where you praying at the Lord's shrine. Oh, your city lies in dust. Oh, your city lies in dust. We found you hiding, we found you lying, choking on the dirt inside. Your former glories and all the stories, dragged and washed with eager hands. Oh, your city lies in dust. Oh, your city lies in dust. Oh, your city lies in dust. Oh, your city lies
Yeah, Arcana just released today.
How are you feeling?
Um, I feel great. I'm super excited. The music video for Cities and Dust also got released today, and it feels very cathartic. Like I feel like it's out there. It's something that I've been working on for almost 2 years, and I feel like it's the record that I've been wanting to create for a very, very, very long time. Like we're talking like the last 20 years. And I feel like I finally was able to achieve that, and it feels great. I'm really proud of it. And I hope everyone likes it because I really like it.
Well, I could say because I had the privilege of listening it ahead of release. You were so kind as to provide me with the secret link. I really liked it. I was really impressed, to be honest. Apart from just liking it, it's a very enjoyable album. But I was really impressed for several reasons. Really, you are well known for your artistic endeavors beyond the music, be it design or used to work in fashion. Let's talk about that a little bit later too.
Yeah.
So basically, 3.5 years ago was your debut album,
Yeah.
and yeah, I re-listened to that one as well, and that was also a great album. But I really have the feeling that this was a massive evolution. Also, one could say a step away even more from synthwave, even though your first album, releasing it, wasn't really that much synthwave either. It got grouped in, I think, through Iron Skullet, wasn't it? Through
Yeah.
his one of his rare thumbs up articles.
Yeah.
And that's actually
Thank
how I got
God.
to know. That's how I got to know you too, through that article. But yeah, of course, there were. Listening to it, you can see why one would also group it in with synthwave, because basically just a bit darker vocal synthwave or synth pop. But
It was
this album now,
adjacent. Yeah. It was
yeah,
adjacent.
exactly, adjacent, yeah. But this album is really an evolution. Did it feel that way for you too, writing and producing it?
Yeah, it was I had to well, just backtracking, like with painted holograms. My introduction to synthwave was through Iron Scarlet. It was all purely accidental. It was painted holograms is not a synthwave record. If anything, it's I would describe it a mix of dark wave and neon noir. There's like
Yeah,
that like Vangelis type of like cinematic treatments in some of the songs. But that's how I also met, like, a lot of the friends and peers and colleagues, that I have now, because of Iron Scarlet, and also because of the whole, mix with synthwave and, being introduced into the community, which is really awesome. But at the same time, when Painted Holograms, I was also at that point in my life where like everything changed, and I always talk about this, like, when I had, like, I was at the peak of my fashion career at, like, one point, like, I was having my golden era, and then things shifted, things got challenging, and then whatever I was building at that time crumbled, and I kind of had to like control alt delete my life and then start over. And Painted Holograms was actually about that period. And then fast forward a couple of years later, the pandemic happens and I see my life restarting again. And this time, uprooting everything from New York, moving into Spain. Now living in Spain, as soon as I set foot here, I f- I went through a shift, another shift, and kind of like I finally felt home. You know what I mean? In a strange way, I felt home. I felt like I was where I was supposed to be, or I am where I am supposed to be now, and everything kind of happens for a reason. And so the new record, when I was about to start working on it, actually, that's when Dark Tunes came. Like they like, Raf Beck, who's the CEO of Dark Tunes, found my work, has been watching my work for quite some time, knows that I was in synthwave, but was like, Dark Tunes is a goth metal label, industrial
Yeah.
label, and they're like, "We really want you to be part of our roster. You're doing something great, from music to presentation, visuals, etc." So that also got me thinking, and I was like, "Okay, this is happening all for a reason." And I just took the opportunity, now that I got signed to a really, really awesome gothic and dark wave label.
It's a
I was
German
like, "Okay,
label,
look."
isn't it?
What's that?
It's a
It's a
German
German,
label,
yeah,
isn't it?
German,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
out of Germany. Um, I was like, "Okay, this is a good opportunity to reassess which direction I really wanna take my music to." And also, I also have to be honest with myself, like, I also had to kinda reflect back on why I started doing music to begin with back when I was much younger. When in my early 20s, I was part of a progressive metal band, And a lot of that, like, I still love a lot of what that is, and I felt like I need to go back to those roots somehow. And, so when I started working on Arcana, I kinda just went through the list of influences, like from Tool, A Perfect
Yeah.
Circle,
Let me
Nine Inch
can I just
Nails.
stop you there?
Yeah.
Because we want to talk about influences, but actually, when I was listening to it, I made a note of influences I heard from your music, and I totally agree with what you mentioned with Tool and Nine Inch Nails. But actually, I was looking a bit at especially with the vocal performance and the melodies, and what I felt was, and I'll just drop the list on you, and you tell me how you feel
Sure,
about it.
sure, let's do
So,
it.
one for me very obvious influence was Kate. I felt a lot of Kate Bush in your music. Um, bit more. I think your voice is actually a bit more powerful, especially in the higher notes, which I found very impressive. Um, but yeah, very much Kate Bush, Susie and the Banshees, Debbie Harry,
Yeah.
and Evanescence.
I get that a lot, yeah. It's the low timbre, that, like, darker low timbre tone in our voices. Yeah, and I think you're pretty much on point.
Okay.
I feel like it's an amalgam, actually, of a lot of influences, and a lot of, actually, all the artists that you've mentioned are definitely make up, like, a huge facet of my, vocal styling, and also, like, my own development. Yes, I did listen to a lot of Kate Bush, Susie Q and the Banshees. When Evanescence came out, actually, that was when my progressive metal band was also out at the same time, and at that point, we also got compared a lot, and labels
Okay.
were actually looking into us, because they're like, "Oh, wow, this could be an answer to Evanescence." So they wanted to
Right.
challenge Evanescence with the IcoStar project at that point. That was the name of my old band. But yeah, I do get a lot of that comparison. Another figure is, for sure, Enya. I like a lot
Yeah.
of that
Sure.
new age, kinda otherworldly sound that I really, really, really love. Dolores O'Riordan from the Cranberries, rest in peace. She was an amazing, amazing, huge influence in me as well. Recently, Florence and the Machine.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
she came out, I was really happy, like, when she came out, because we were in a world of, like, super, like, sugary pop vocals, like, at that time, and then she came out, and then this super soulful, like, very nuanced vocal style, very untethered. I was really happy to see that, and so, like, that also kinda gave me the confidence to kinda stay true to, like, how I sing. And then, but the number one influence on me, to be honest, is Maynard James Keenan of Tool. And
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
everyone who knows Tool very well, and then they hear me sing, automatically they're like, wow, we definitely hear the Maynard influence and like the wails, the long, like, yeah, I can do the 30-40 second long wails. Yeah. If yeah, if there's space for it in music, I would totally do it. But Maynard has been like all of his projects, actually, Tool, Perfect Circle, Pussifer, everything. Like he's the one who's definitely my main influence, I think.
Okay,
Um,
interesting.
not just as a vocalist, but as a lyricist and a songwriter. And also just the way, like, just the way he is, like, his philosophies, spiritual outlook. I connected with what he's about, like, back when I was, like, 19, 18 years old. So, like, at a very young age, I've already been a Maynard James Keenan fan and kinda, like, taught me how music can also be a vehicle towards, like, a certain purpose, and maybe I'm overthinking this or overanalyzing this, but I always felt like Tool was such a special band. That's why they're so powerful to this day, and they were able to dethrone Taylor Swift a couple years ago, and Taylor Swift fans were definitely upset when they did, like, Tool dethroned her from the Billboard charts that year. There's a reason for that. There are people who see that connectivity and who wanna get more out of music, like where they can relate to the music in ways that's not really found anywhere, and I felt like even with Tool, like the whole dynamics, the way they write, the way they use math, and their songwriting, the use of polyrhythms, there's it's all very purposeful and there's like a reason for it, and it does create that vibe where it really forces you to listen and to like kind of just vibe with it, and then like you internalize it, and then plus his words, the way Maynard James Keenan writes, his language is amazing. It's just like, it's sure it's very poetic, sometimes hard to digest, but then once you get into that, once you open to that kind of dynamic, it's like it's hard to get, it's hard to like come out of that rabbit hole. It really like sucks you in. So that's that would be my like I would say my main influence. Kate Bush's artistry for sure is in there. Susie Sue's like, gothic, dark wave, essence. Like, yeah, those were also major influences on me. So
And also, what I just realized was with all these women, they also were style or stylistic and or fashion icons as well, weren't they? Each in their time. Something also that probably resonates very much with you.
yeah, I think you know what? It's funny that you mentioned that, because I also look at David Bowie and Prince, like, similarly, where they were even Michael Jackson, like, I think I think it's the authenticity, you know, that's what's shining through, and they really embody that from, top to bottom, not just in the way they perform, not just in the way they sing or write music, also how they present themselves. It's like, it's 5D, it's like, and also full 360, like, and I think that's really admirable. Like, to me, being unique is really important. Like, I not because I wanna stand out, because I wanna stay true to myself. Like, I
Right.
know that we're all different. We all have different journeys and backgrounds and experiences, and we are all in an amalgam of different things. How do we convey that, through our art and through our music? I think it's really important. I feel like for some reason, and I don't know what's happened, to music in the last few years, but for some reason things are getting more and more homogenized, and I don't know the reason for it, to be honest. I feel like it's programmed to be homogenized these days, and it's hard
Yeah.
to kind of, distinguish between artists sometimes. And I think that's kind of sad. It makes me sad,
True.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, when people say, "Oh, like, your voice is too, like, it's too nuanced or it's too different." And I'm like, you
Good.
know, so yeah, like, oh my
That's what I was going for.
like, what this is how I sing, and then, but if you look back in the 80s and even the 70s, everyone had their own specific style. All the
Yeah,
way up to
that's
the
true.
90s, early 2000s, everyone had their very specific style of performance,
Yeah,
and I think that needs to be encouraged, and I feel like it's time to kind of bring a lot of that back into music.
totally. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think if obviously if you feel happy in a niche and feel happy with being part of a specific genre, do it absolutely if that's what you want to do. But I agree entirely. I think there are a lot of artists who do a specific style or follow a specific genre because they think they have to, and that is sad, really. And that's why I totally agree. Um, I Be yourself is of course easier said than done, but I think it's still very important to always remember that that's the most important thing to really stay true to yourself because
Yeah,
yeah, because in the end of the day, I mean, you have to look into the mirror and you're the only one staring back, and you have to be happy with who's staring back at you.
absolutely. And then also you kind of have to be able to identify what makes you really different as an
Yeah,
artist. Why should people vibe with you? What's your message? What do you stand for? And and where does your passion actually lie, right? Where does it stand? Where does it sit? Because that's what people want to see. Like, it's they don't I mean, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like people listen to music not because, oh, you're like the best guitar hero in the world, or you're the best synth person in the world, or best vocalist in the world. Like, they don't listen to you for the mechanical and athletic aspect of being a musician. They'll listen to you because you have a certain vibe to convey, you have a message to convey, you make them
yeah,
feel something, and you can only achieve that by being genuine and being authentic. It's
right.
like it's like food, right? Like there's prepackaged goods, there's canned goods, and then there's gourmet. Like,
Yeah,
it's that's just how I see it. Like a lot of what's happening in pop mainstream, they seem to box artists in certain sounds and certain kind of like artificial like vibes, and I know it takes like eight songwriters and producers to create that one vibe, but it's like so manufactured, um where and then I don't know why that has become the standard, because I know music that I love, it's like super genuine to the core, and super, that's why they became legends,
yeah,
it's because they're saying something and they stand for something. And for sure, I'm still creating what that is, or what that means to me, as part of this artistic journey. um, I still don't know what that is for me, but I feel like step by step, especially with this new record, I'm getting closer to identifying what that is to me. And to me, that's the important part of the process.
you mentioned just a few minutes back David Bowie as one of
Mhm.
your influences, which and authenticity, which I find very interesting. And a while back on Twitter, and please just stop me if this is too personal, but a while back on Twitter, you came out as non-binary,
Mhm. Yeah.
and I was wondering actually, is this obviously this is always a process discovering your true identity, and
Mhm.
was that something that maybe was also a little bit a byproduct of your new album that while working on it you was something that you discovered? I mean, you mentioned that it's something you've always felt but couldn't maybe place, but how did
Yeah.
music play into that?
For sure. Well, I've always been non-binary.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, since I was a child. It's just something that I feel that that has confused a lot of the people, like, that are close to me, like, for sure my family, they just didn't know what to call it. They knew I was different. They knew that I wasn't quote unquote normal. Um and had been challenged and questioned throughout my entire life. So, like, my sisters, for sure earlier on, kind of tried to help raise me to be a quote unquote girl, because they're like, oh, you're a girl, and so it's something that has kind of ebbed and flowed throughout, like, all the decades. Like, there will be times when it's very obvious, and there are times that like, I look super, feminine. Um, but it's gotten to the point where this past couple years, I felt like, what, I just had to be honest. Like, I just had to really express myself fully. Because it is taxing. It is taxing to always kind of have to play in some sort of gender role or construct, and I think it was just time. And yes, the music played a huge factor in that because just lyrically, when I was writing the lyrics, like, I was reflecting back on my life and reflecting back on everything that's happened and how I got to this point. A lot of that too, a lot of the question on gender was for sure embedded in that. Like, it's part of the whole full circle of coming together and really fully self-realizing, right? And I think that is always an important part of growth and important part of really figuring out who you really are and and what your place is in this world. And also, I came out because it was just really time. It was just time, like everyone around me knows, like, they've always known, it's just that finally now we have a word for it, which didn't exist, like, like
Yeah.
several years ago. It didn't exist. This word
No, no.
just came out now, like, finally, and it's something that's been needed for quite some time. All of my influences artistically, creatively have always been a mix of, like, men, women, and even when I'm singing sometimes can't tell whether it's a man or a woman. It's just like a blend of, like, it's a very androgynous voice that comes out
Yeah.
every now and then, and it's very evident on the record. And and if anything, it really during the production, it allowed me to really be more untethered, like, and my performance had really shown through. It had to really come out, and then I was able to really convey what I was wanting to convey and was feeling because I wasn't so tethered anymore. You know what I mean? Like, like, I don't
Yeah.
have to be
It's
so
interesting.
conscious of like how I sound, like, or how I might appear or how I might look. It was very
Yeah.
freeing. So it was just something that really needed to happen, and for sure the record also kind of helped that push. So
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I might be wrong, but from an outside perspective, I feel music or the arts in general have always been more forgiving of the non-binary experience or the androgynous experience than society in general.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and so
And it's not even like, it like, it's good that it's being discussed, but even, like, for example, like, you look at Bowie, you look at Grace Jones, even, like, actresses like, you know, actors like Tilda Swinton. These are non-binary individuals. Are they like, were they really, like, wearing that flag? No, they weren't really wearing that flag. It's more like that's just that's just how they really are. They
yeah.
weren't like concerned over their pronouns, whatnot. It's more like, no, this is how we are. You guys can keep guessing, you know. And they didn't, you can tell they didn't really care, but but it's important to their art. It's important to their craft because you can see that there is something really refined and different and authentic about them because they didn't let themselves get so changed or get so tethered to what society expects out of them, and I think
Yeah.
that's really, really important with art and, like, being an artist, being a musician, being an actor, being a producer, just anything. It's just being free of all of those, constructs and all of those compartmentalizations.
Right. Yeah. Really interesting, because obviously, as someone who's a cis male, this is something that where I can learn a lot, really, and thank you for share this perspective too. But
Mhm.
we've been talking quite a lot now, and I think you've prepared a list of videos you'd love to show. So maybe we
Yeah.
should do that. We've been talking about influences. Is there maybe some from one of your influences you would like to have a look at?
Yeah, let's, well, I spoke a lot about Tool. I think
You
we should
did.
start with Tool. This is Vicarious from their record 10,000 Days, which is one of my favorite songs ever. They're just so cool. I mean, I know it takes a bit to really understand their music, and then once you're in it, you're just in it. There's no
Yeah.
escaping.
Its
Um
own universe, really, isn't it? It's like something where you really have to dive into, and there's probably a whole Wikia fandom just around Tool albums.
Oh,
And
yeah, for sure.
I,
Like,
I,
they
I I really have to go into to the Genius page for Tool. That should be interesting. There are probably fights also. There are fights in in the interpretations between fans who have different interpretations, and
Absolutely. Like,
yeah,
yeah, there's a Tool army for that around the world. But, I mean, their success, and the level that they've achieved, with just being so true to their concept and to, what they wanna bring is just so
yeah,
admirable. Like, it really gives me so much hope that, yeah, there is a market for that. There's a demographic, like, that want that, and it's huge. And then, I'm
yeah. I
actually
think so. Yeah,
trying to see their show here in Europe. They're playing in France and in Germany and in the UK. I'm trying to see if I could grab some tickets and watch them.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really cool. Um, Still speaking of influences, something that an image that came to my mind's eye while listening to it was that of opera. Um,
Mm.
it's somehow operatic is the wrong word because that doesn't sound good, but the whole concept of an opera. The album seemed very much like it could be some kind of opera too, and also your vocal style, while not being that of an opera, um, yeah, it somehow evoked the atmosphere of one. Uh, you
Ye
standing on such a stage with an audience, and I could see you very much on an opera stage as opposed to a club stage with this album. Although that would work
um,
too. But
that's very accurate because the way I wrote, the music and also did the production was like I had a chamber orchestra in mind and a choir. Like, that's if I'm gonna do my dream record, I'm gonna do it right. Like, I'm gonna,
right,
like, go all out, like, pull all the stoppers. Um, and also there is a concept, um, in the record that I really wanna translate into a full, visual presentation live.
yeah, I can see that.
Like a big live performance, because every song from start to finish, it's like a movie, or it does unfold. Um, it starts bright, and happy and joyous and triumphant, and then, it gets lovey-dovey, then it gets mysterious, and then it goes into a darker turn, and then it reaches its summit, and then it resolves into something peaceful. So there's an arc. Like, when I was putting this together, like, I wanted to make sure that that arc is very, very prominent, and it's very, it's obvious. and it can be translated.
Arcana. Very
And then
common.
and I wanted to there you go. And I wanted to, I really for sure, I'm a very visual person, like, I love making my little music films, music videos,
Yeah,
and
little,
I
with emphasis on the little music film.
but, I also wanted to adapt this as on stage, as almost like a theater type of,
Right.
vibe. Um, like, I love Bjork. Bjork is another massive influence for sure.
Mhm.
Um, just the way she does things, she's so out there, so creative, and so artistic, and then but the live performances and the live shows that she does is really so remarkable. I don't know if you've been to a Bjork show, but I've cried. Every time I go to a Bjork show, I just cry because she's just so overwhelming, when it comes to her work and her just like her spirit is like so badass and so cool and so pure and genuine, and I'm very very sensitive to that, and I love seeing that. And then but on top of that, her creativity is so next level. It's like it's completely alien. It's like she's not from this planet. She's totally out there. And that's so inspiring to me. So, if I ever
Yeah.
do, a live adaptation of Arcana, it would I wanna make it just as good as what a Björk concert, would be, one day.
Yeah. It's definitely a good reference point. And I think, that would be very fitting for the album. Um, yeah, one of my favorite songs actually is "The Fox's Wedding."
Mm,
Which is one of the quieter songs on the album.
mhm.
Another favorite song is Medusa, which was released already as a single. A great song too. And The Fox's Wedding is a very much quieter song. And you told me it's a very special song for you as well. For what reason?
Oh, it's my wedding song. It's the song that I want to walk down the aisle to, I never had a big wedding. I was supposed to um have a big wedding here, but because of the pandemic, that for sure put a damper on all the wedding plans for now. For now. But when it happens, and I wanted to write a song that was that's really evocative of what of how I really feel, and how love changed me, sorry to be so corny, but it's so true.
Or if it's
Like,
true, it's true.
it's true. But and The Fox's Wedding is definitely that song that expresses exactly how I feel in my own perspective on what love is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Um, and probably, I mean, I'm not sure if I have to check the name of the song, but it's the last proper
Till the
song of
last
the album because there's an instrumental after that as well. But "Till the Last Star Cosmos" seems also
Yeah.
to be very much about love and how you feel.
That was actually Fox's Wedding and Till the Last Star Cosmos they kinda go hand in hand. Till the Last
Yeah,
Star was the first song that I wrote right after I got married, when Billy Kawhi and I got married back in New York. I just wrote that song because I was just, kinda just looking back at how we met later in life, we're not, young,
yeah.
youngins anymore,
You
but,
both had lived already.
we've both lived, and it's kinda it's more of Till the Last Star is reflective of, what what I would give to have, a full lifetime, with someone that I love. So it's just
Yeah,
because we met so late in life, but kinda at the same time, that's what also makes it so precious, oh, it's never too late, it's never too late for love, or never too late for finding who's right for you and who's for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
I had in the community I grew up in, there was a lady who got married for the first time when she was 70. So yeah, it's true. It's never too late. You
That's
can always,
amazing. I
yeah.
love that.
So yeah, I agree.
She finally
It,
met.
totally. It's sometimes,
Yeah.
you never meet the right person, and it just happens. I think the reason I like these two particular songs is because the production, that is really something amazing. I mean, the production value on this album is just huge in the most literal sense of the word. It's really, really good, high quality. The production itself, but also obviously the mixing, mastering. Von Herzog was
Vaughn,
the
yeah.
engineer who helped you. I mean, he's a pro, a very, very seasoned pro, and he's really good. So that's all huge. But with these two songs, they are the quietest songs really on the album, and also the most minimalistic. Probably also the smallest number of tracks on the whole
Yeah.
album.
Yes.
But I thought they were very fitting in the whole context of the album. They gave one a bit of repose as well in between the songs,
Mhm.
but they also brought something, or they helped really, feature you in a completely different way than I had known you so far. And because like with Medusa, you're fierce, you're Amazonian, you're vengeful, basically. You're an avenger.
I
Um,
pretty much, yeah, like, for the entire record, it's very, I mean, only because that's really just my style of vocals is
yeah,
very, very fierce, very, like, someone one of the curators in our scene said that, like, like, asked why did I take on a warrior persona? I was like, "I'm a warrior, and that's not a persona." Like, I've been fighting a lot of battles my entire life, that's not a
yeah.
persona, that's how I really am. Um, but yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt what you're
No,
saying.
I mean, no. Please, we want to hear from you, not from me. No, but yeah, these songs just, they're. I think they're very special in this album. I'm sure many others will like them too. And knowing that they have this special meaning for you, they make even more sense. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what people think also about these quieter moments, because I think many are especially fan of you because of your fierceness, which was already apparent on your first album too. Um, but now with this new production value, I think it's even it's ramped up quite a bit.
Yeah, and
Um,
I also want to point out I'm a Gemini. Like, I have two sides, and I there's definitely that, you know, more feral and more aggressive side, and then there's that delicate, more, yeah, more delicate, more subtle, more, um, what do you call it? I'm trying to find the right word. Maybe sweeter side, and I wanted to make sure that the record also showcases, the different facets that I
even
have, and
vulnerable,
then
maybe, right? In a
yeah,
certain
there you
way.
go, the yeah, there you go, that's the word I was looking for, like, more
Yeah,
vulnerable, and and being vulnerable and expressing vulnerability through your art and music also takes bravery, so that's why it kinda also goes hand in hand with the entire arc of the record,
yeah,
because the record is asking, you to be brave and to be honest and to celebrate the good things you have in your life. Also, you know, ask you to kinda just, put your shields down when it's time to, really be open and really express, your emotions and your feelings and show your heart, and the cover for the record, shows me with an exposed lungs, an exposed heart, exposed lungs, because it's kinda like just to showcase that, yeah, like, I could be open and I could, I have nothing to hide. Like, I will wear my emotions out of my sleeve, so, yeah.
yeah, yeah. You really see that. So
Should
I was born in Gibraltar. I am half, well, I'm quarter British, quarter French, half German, and many people think that's already exotic. But when we come to you, I've realized that that's not even half of it. And maybe we can look at another video that you've seen, but then we
Sure.
have to talk about your heritage, because that's
Okay.
really fascinating.
Let's, do you wanna what video should we choose? Another thing from my influences or one of my own?
Yeah, let's have a look at one of yours.
Okay, you wanna do Wonderland?
That
Or
would be good.
Wonderland,
Yeah,
Atomic,
Wonderland
and
is
Medusa.
cool.
Let's do it. Okay. Alright, let's do this.
Yeah, from Thorina's second album, Arcana, that was Wonderland. And yeah, what a video. And what a song. I mean, that's a club banger, really, isn't it? I mean, you can just see that being played at a nice dark wave gothic club.
Or on the beach, like those, like, Ibiza beach parties.
Yeah, but to be honest, it doesn't have much bailando vibes for me. I think it, yeah, I really see it. It's, well, I mean, wouldn't that be great? You go into a club one day, not guessing it, and somebody plays that song on the dance floor when you're there.
Oh my god, yeah, that would be amazing.
That's
Yeah,
me. That's me.
that would be great. Yeah. Well, that's the
Yeah,
goal, right? That's the goal.
that is the goal.
Um,
It is. Yeah,
and but like, some of my friends in the dark wave, actually they're dark tunes artists. Like, we'd go into a club and they'd be playing their tracks, and which is really cool. And I'd be like, oh, those are my label mates. Like, and I'd be like so excited.
yeah, that is
Yeah.
cool. But as we said just before the video played, you have quite the a fascinating heritage. So let's go into that. I made a note because you shared it with me ahead, and I have to read it because it's not. I couldn't memorize it. You're Philippine born.
Mhm.
You have East Asian, specifically Chinese and Japanese
Mhm.
heritage, as
Mhm.
well as Iberian, Spanish, Portuguese.
Yes.
How did that happen?
And also I grew up in New York.
Yeah,
I'm an American.
if that was enough, you grew up in New
That
York,
was
and
enough.
yeah,
And now I'm European because I'm in Spain now. But, no, no, Philippines is, everyone knows that Philippines is oh my god, it's a melting pot of its own.
yeah,
We are strategically located in one of the, best military, like, spots in the world because we we can aim our cannons and, like, all of our missiles, like, anywhere. But,
yeah,
but I mean, historically, yeah, almost every Filipino is some sort of Spanish Chinese or East Asian, like, Spanish, Portuguese. It's just the Portuguese aspect is really strange in my family because I know that we're part Spanish, but for some reason we do have a Portuguese last name. We're the Cajucums, which translates to with nuts. In Portuguese, and it's a real Portuguese last name, and so
yeah,
we're a bunch of nuts in the family. Um, but, that actually has to be explained. Like, I don't understand why we have a Portuguese last name, but I would assume that we were probably cashew traders at one point, by way of Spain, and then they came to Manila back in the early days, and then, but yeah, Manila, where I grew up, is quite of a melting pot, and it's definitely a lot of mixes there, like mixes even between Asians and but what makes Philippines special is the fact that it was a Spanish colony for like hundreds of years. So
yeah,
that's why a lot of us are so mixed in that regard. Um, and then later on when my family, well, the country fell into a dictatorship later on. But before that, um, World War II, for sure, uh, Japanese occupied Philippines. We fell under Japanese occupation, but even before that, Japanese people have already been occupying Manila along with the Chinese. So that's where like a huge part of my heritage also came from.
yeah,
And then the Americans came after, like, during World War II, save us from Japan. And actually, you'll hear stories of because of that, you'll hear stories about how there are Japanese people in Manila who had to hide their identities because of that. You know,
yeah,
um, it's just part of what happens during wartime, right, and all the identity stuff. So
Yeah, well, they were the oppressor during that time, so obviously not
yeah,
everyone
so
was really
obviously,
happy
so
to see a Japanese person back then.
and for sure there are people in my family who had to go through that, and so and a lot of this I learned later on in life. I didn't
Yeah,
know this when I was a kid. Um, I learned it later on, and I kind of just like, for sure part of me feels like, well, a lot of that needs to get celebrated and get embraced again.
yeah.
But then Philippines fell under dictatorship, like, in the late
Glamorous
60s,
Marcos
70s. Yeah,
couple, right?
Marcos, yeah, for sure. And then, shit happened. A lot of people had to flee, and,
Yeah,
members of my family for sure were one of the first, and, like, and then some of us followed later on. That's how a lot of us end up in the United States, um, give a sanctuary, and so, um, like, I moved there when I was very, very young, and, I actually, like, I identify as a New Yorker, um, and but also that also taught me to embrace, like, our original cultural identity. I identify more as a New Yorker than Filipino only because, like, I didn't really live a lot of the Filipino culture as it is now. Like, my sisters did. So you'll see that there's a cultural gap even within my family
do
that,
they still live? Does any of your family still live in the Philippines?
they moved back. So my
They moved
parents
back.
retired
Okay,
back, like, just a couple of years ago. Like,
okay,
majority of us grew up in New York and in the
right.
United States. But my two older sisters, they moved back later on in life. Um, one of them actually has been living there predominantly her entire life. She's just been coming to the United States to visit us. But but the older sisters, they've set up their lives there in the last couple decades. So to me, they're the real Filipino. So they've for sure grew up with the Filipino culture, and then me and my brother, like, we're the Americans and the New Yorkers, and then but there's so much mixes culturally even within our family alone that we each celebrate. So yes, we celebrate, like, a lot of the Chinese holidays. Like, we celebrate Chinese New Year. We actually adhere to a lot more Chinese traditions when it comes to, like, burials and death in the family. But also we celebrate the Spanish side where
Right.
a lot of, like, I mean, we were all baptized Catholic because of that.
Sure. Yeah.
Celebrate the Catholic, like, like, holidays and traditions, only because that's part of the Spanish side. But
Yeah.
but in New York, that was really important. Those are the things that I really held on to, growing up, because that's really part of my identity growing up. Um, and because even New York itself is a melting pot. Like, we all come from
Sure.
different places, and it's quite celebrated, actually. Like, and I feel very privileged that I got to grow up in a city like New York, because like, New York is so strong and it's so proud, and it's so fierce.
Yeah.
And I think that that really had such an impact on me, and it really pushed me to really step up, like, step up, not, like, not just as a creative, but step up as an individual. Like, you got to
Right.
represent something, like, you got to stand for something, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, to be
I
fair,
don't know.
um,
I
the
don't know
the
if this
the
explained, like, anything, or if it made it
I
more
think it does
interesting.
really, because I mean, I can relate in that, with me growing up in Germany, but being viewed as a Brit from everyone in Germany. When you're a kid, you just want to blend in, really. And back then, I didn't know. Then I wasn't diagnosed as an autistic. Then back then, I just felt weird. Didn't know that I wasn't autistic. That just came in my late 30s. But I knew I was different, so I really wanted to blend in. And then you called
Mhm.
in German, they called you a Tommy, which was, the derogatory term for in English. And then that just
Oh,
made me
wow.
really
And
identify, even nobody, they were kids, they didn't really know what they were saying, but it still has an effect. So that made me even
mhm.
identify more as a Brit, although I was growing up in Germany, and that has stayed with me all my life because I'm not
You're also
nationalistic
from
at all.
Gibraltar.
Exactly. Yeah. I
Has
mean,
yeah.
yeah, which is a British colony, and yeah. So I get that, especially when you've got fractured identities,
Mhm,
which I would say is my case, also in your case too, with all these different influences. Identity, I think, tends to be a very important topic. You also see it a lot with uh, third or fourth generation kids here in Germany from Turkish or Polish families.
mhm.
They tend to look back a lot to their identities and what it means for them, especially when you're being othered. And me, I mean, what I experienced was nothing, was just kids being kids. But
Mhm.
if you're in Germany, if you were of Turkish background or Russian or Polish, you were othered on a daily basis. And I think that is, even if it's not meant in a bad way, some people just are very clumsy in their way they go about with others, but it does have an effect. So I'm sure
It
all the
does.
experiences you've made in your life will have flown into what you output creatively as well.
I think, yeah, I think when my parents and I moved to the United States, like, especially New York, which is a really tough city, um, they really worked hard to make sure that my siblings and I were really equipped, which explains, the reason why I have, I have so many capabilities, like in music and art and design, math. Not so much of the stereotype, but it was so important to be so equipped and to excel in several different things because you just never know. And so that's like almost every immigrant family story. Every immigrant child, like growing up in New York, has a similar story, like where yeah,
Agree.
we did the art lessons, we did the music lessons, we had to be so good academically, like, you for sure the pressure was there, it used to drive me crazy, but some of it also is self-imposed pressure.
Hmm.
Um, Competition's tough, and especially the fact that, you know, I was like, I'm a person of color, born female, that has a lot of hurdles in front of me, growing up in New
Yeah.
York, and then the only way to really get through that is by being good at of not just at one thing, but in several things. So that's how I survive,
Yeah.
because it's such a competitive city. Um, and for sure there's a lot of micro transgressions that happen. You just have to kind of steal through that, and you kind of have to prove your point that yeah, what, I can beat you in your game kind of thing, and that's the
Yeah.
and that's the only way that people like me, people of color, get respected, and get somewhere, get ahead. But it still kind of backfires because explaining this to someone where people of color have to work 5 times, 10 times harder
Hmm.
than, their white counterparts because it's like in order just to measure up, or gain some sort of equal footing, we have to work 5 times, 10 times harder, which is still still fucked up if you think about it,
It is. Yeah. Sure.
yeah, because it's like, um, eh, for example, in a corporate industry, um someone who's who's more privileged than me will get that executive level job even though I am 10 times more qualified. You know what I mean? It's like it still happens. Like that kind of shit still happens. But hopefully, well, I'm hoping it's getting better. It seems like it's getting better.
Hope so.
Um
Yeah.
and but that's that's the one thing that's one way to survive, you know, in a tough city like New York, where yes, there's a lot of hurdles set up against you. You just have to like you have to be like an athlete, like you have to be good at like a lot of different things, and
Yeah,
not just good, you have to be great. And there's that pressure. Otherwise, yeah, you'll get ignored, you'll get othered, you'll get shoved to the side. Um, but that's reality, you know. This dialogue is, it has to be continued, and people need to continue fighting back on this.
yeah.
So,
And the hurdles you mentioned, the outside hurdles, let's call them, the exterior hurdles aside, um, do you have the feeling you also impose a lot of pressure on yourself that you feel you have to live up to?
oh,
Are you
absolutely.
also very competitive with yourself?
Um, with myself, I think always. I feel like not because I have to set a bar or anything. I feel like I just need to I need to see myself on a continuous growth because I don't ever want to plateau. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like I want to
Yeah.
keep pushing myself so I'm like constantly growing. I'm always
You don't want
on
to
an
get
up.
complacent with
Yeah,
artistically.
and I feel like I need to like also I get bored easily if that's not obvious. Like if once I get my head into something and I figured everything out, um I have to move on to the next thing. Like I have to keep myself challenged. Like, I like the challenge. I like progressing, you know. I don't yeah, like what you said, I don't like being complacent. I don't like being stuck in one thing. I need to keep moving, or at least I need to be bringing something new. Because yeah, I get bored.
So what's the next thing?
Well, right now I'm going back to fashion. I am repricing some old roles that I had in fashion, which I'm really excited about because I feel like the last 2 years I was just so focused on music and on the record and which is great, and I had a great time, and I love where like how it turned out. But I know that I need to step away from it a little bit. Um, Not like putting a stop on it. I just need to step away from it emotionally and discipline wise because I need to kind of learn something else right now and
Yeah,
redevelop a different, perspective which I know I will use going back into music when it's time to create the next record after this.
right.
So I need that like, different pace and different scenery, different kind of experiences in order to create the next thing. So likewise, it works the reverse, so a lot of the stuff that I've been doing in music in the last 2 years will help me in what I'm about to do in fashion. So I just need that. I can't stay in one spot. Um and and I need to be constantly moving. I need to be moving on to like, another area and develop there as well and then move on, so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's something I can relate to. Not geographically, really, because I like to be in one place, but definitely when it comes to interests, which is, well, with me, I think having several or changing special interests is part of autism, for example, too. So that's something I can really relate to. That I like to explore new avenues and find new vocations and everything, and then devote myself to it. And I think we relate a lot there because you also I can imagine if you devote yourself to something, you go all in.
Mhm.
That's how I imagine you.
Yeah, I definitely go all in. Like, I don't half-ass anything. Like, I it's something that my dad instilled in me. Like,
Yeah,
if you're gonna do something, you gotta put everything in it and put your heart in it, even if you're just washing the dishes. You make sure that every like there's no spot, like there's no spot left, or everything is cleaned up.
Yeah.
He made sure that I know how to wash dishes properly. First early lessons in life, it's like, and so ever since then I've kind of just applied that in everything that I do. And it just happened that I built so many different interests growing up that I was like kind of hell bent on, like, okay, I need to make sure that I figure some like a new skill from top to bottom, and I want to make sure that I'm good at it, before I move on to the next skill.
Yeah.
And then I think that was that was a very important aspect of growing up. And if you can imagine, like, having someone like my dad, like, who's also an overachiever, like, himself, and like he kind of made, he wanted to make sure that, his kids grew up, like, very equipped, and like,
Yeah.
have a good approach towards whatever they pick up on. So
Yeah. Well, he seems to have achieved that with you. So hats off to that.
I was like, every single one of us, like, especially my sisters. Like, my sisters are like 20 billion times more fierce than me, and they're just so I call them the CEOs of the family now. They're very, very, very accomplished women, and I'm very, very proud of them. But it's yeah, I'm the clown. I'm the clown of the family. I'm the black sheep clown, but everyone knows that.
Speaking of black sheep, are you a goth?
It's a Technicolor goth, yeah. Um, I do. I mean, what is goth, right? I mean, from the
Good
outside,
question. What is goth?
but
Tell me, what is
people
goth?
just, oh my God, goth is that is a hard question to answer, because I feel like goths have several meanings, several layers to them, and spanning from several origins, but overall the way I look at it is goth is basically embracing the dark side, like, darkness and dark aesthetics, and kind of like as a way to be able to fully express yourself without judgment, and that's what I love about the goth scenes in New York. Very non-judgmental. You can express and be, like, whoever you are, whatever you are, and it's all welcomed, and nothing's gate kept. um for sure there's the, like, the tropey aspects where you see a lot of crosses and a lot of like cemetery aesthetic. That's what I call it.
Yeah,
But I feel like
sure.
there's different kinds of goth. I feel like being goth is like it's a whole spectrum and of its own. It has like different layers and different levels. And I always just call myself as the Technicolor kind, because I still like my color. I
Yeah,
do wear a lot of black, but like I still like my color.
yeah.
um
I don't have much expertise on the goth scene really, because never even been remotely close to that scene. I mean, I was very often in my hometown in the same clubs, because like in my hometown, alternative night was like from 10 to 2 it was alternative, and after that the goths came on, and then you
Goth,
had
yeah.
more the metal side, so it was all very mixed, and you didn't really, so
Mhm.
the scenes mingled. Um, but my most interesting experience with the goth scene was, I was still a Jehovah's Witness, because I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, and my parents still are. And when I was a teenager, we had one of these really big get-togethers. They call conventions, and it was in an East German town.
Mhm.
And in the intermission, we all went over to the supermarket to get something to eat. And funny enough, the same weekend there was, and you probably either you already know it, or your label might even invite you to it, or want you to play there. There was the Wave Gothic Treffen in Leipzig,
Oh,
the
yeah. Oh my
WGT,
god, yes. It's
the
my dream
biggest
to.
goth convention.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
headlined that. Not me, but the label artists, Under Dark Tunes, they headline, um oh my
yeah,
god, I
I'd
always forget.
imagine
Is
that they
it
did. Yeah,
Gothic
Wave
Gothic
Gothic Treffen, yeah.
Wave Gothic Treffen. I always confuse that name, but they do headline it, and I've submitted my materials, and let's see,
Yeah, you'd be
because
perfect for that.
they've been, I think, backed up for like the last couple of years because of
Yeah,
COVID, and so
totally.
if I don't get to play this year, hopefully I get to play next year. But it's on my
That would be
bucket
perfect.
list.
Yeah,
Yeah, to be on
yeah,
that stage. And also Mara Luna. Mara Luna.
yeah.
There's
Of
a
course,
few.
these
There's a
two,
few in Europe, and it's like goth community in Europe is so strong, it's so powerful,
especially
and
in
it's so
Germany too. Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there was this convention going on at the same time as our convention, like 100 kilometers apart. And on the way there, they were stopping in that town and they were going to the supermarket. So we went over, and us Jehovah's Witness kids, we were all dressed up, with our ties and shirts. We're like, 14-year-old brats in ties and suits and everything. So we were the weirdos in the beginning of this weekend going to the supermarket. And then they turned up, all the goths. And all of a sudden, we weren't the only weirdos anymore. And it was such, I mean, not that the Jehovah's Witness experience for me was nice, but that was such a nice experience because we, we looked at them and they looked at us and we realized, okay, we both are the weirdos here. So let's just hang out. So during this intermission, basically you had Jehovah's Witness kids hanging out with goth kids,
I
all in
love it.
their, all in their costumes and everything, having lunch together. Having nothing in common other than being the weirdos on that day. That was a really, I
Uh,
always remember this moment. It was really funny. So yeah, what you said
I
about goths being tolerant, that is my experience too.
That's like it's always kind of been like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Even it's funny because we always, like, in the Civic community, we always talk about gatekeeping and all that stuff. Um no, goth community, industrial community, that's their point, is to destroy gatekeepers. Like, that nothing there is gatekept. Everyone's
yeah,
welcome to express and bring their art. And what's really, really interesting is that a lot of them are really super fierce musicians. Like,
yeah,
they're fierce.
that's
Like,
true.
they can throw, like, they can totally like, play their material and play their instruments on stage, like, untethered, just like all out, and
Yeah,
it's really interesting, and because they're not boxed in. They can do
absolutely
whatever
not.
they want, for sure. There's a vibe, there's a vibe, and there's an aesthetic that's being shared, that's common.
Yeah,
But um I especially love the global goth community, because number one, it's huge. It's so big, and it's so strong. I can't stress that enough. And it's such a great arena because everyone's pretty much welcome, Um, and no one's gatekeeping that. And at the same time, it doesn't have to be gatekept because everyone's cool anyway. Like, it kind of works, and that's what's so joyous about it. And you never know who you're gonna get played next to. So, like, I get played in this in one of the largest community in the goth scenes, called Communion After Dark. And they would, they would get the first Gary Newman releases, and then suddenly they're playing Zarina next to Gary Newman, and I think that's, like, really cool. That will never happen anywhere else. Um, and it's just so open, it's so fluid, and also respectful, and I think that's,
that's
yeah,
cool. Yeah,
it's very cool to watch it. For sure, it has its own fair share of drama, but
sure.
it's
Well, which
that's
scene
in
doesn't?
every, yeah, which scene doesn't, but
Yeah,
it's like it's really nice to see how people can be so free with their art. And I just love seeing that, and the fact that they're also kind of pushing the envelope by doing that, you know
right.
um and it's an inspiring scene for sure, and
So
everyone looks great in black.
So there's the game Fuck, Marry, Kill, which we won't do because you're married. It's not appropriate. But what we can do is, I mean, if you want to, obviously, but what we can do is collaborate, produce books. So who would you love to collaborate with? Who would you love to produce? And who would you book to play with? And
Collaborate.
and you can't say tool.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
it
try
has to
not
be
to say
something
Tool.
different.
Okay.
Or you can say Tool, but it just can be one of them. You have to
I
have
would
a
definitely
diverse.
I would love to collaborate with Maynard James Keenan. That's hands down. But okay, let's not use Tool because yeah, we've they're overused in
They're
my
given.
world.
Let's say that's a given. If that happens,
It's a
that's the best
given.
thing ever.
Yeah, that's a given. And I'm not even gonna mention Trent because Trent is the next one. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I Trent Reznor. Um, who would I love to collaborate with? Aside for the obvious ones? Oh my god, there's so many, like so many people that I love to collaborate with. Oh my god, it's hard
But
to pick,
I
but
mean, could also be, I mean, since you're a multimedia artist, could be from any media really. Could even be a director, maybe somebody you'd love to have direct your next music
oh
video.
yeah, for sure. I would love to work with Denis Villeneuve.
Ah, yeah, great choice. Yeah, great
That
choice.
definitely. I mean, imagine you can only imagine the music video for
Wow.
that.
Yeah, that a really good choice.
That would be someone I would love to collaborate with. In fashion, I'd love to collaborate with the House of Schiaparelli. I don't know if you follow any of the fashion stuff, but that's like my favorite fashion house at the moment.
I'll have
Because
to
they're
check
just
them
so
out. I don't know them.
avant-garde. I'll put like
Mm,
images up of what they do, but like it's so exquisite and so avant-garde and so awesome. Um, yeah, music is always hard because music is so emotional, right? And
yeah,
there's so many people I do want to collaborate with. Um, and yeah, I mean, aside for Maynard James Keenan and Trent Reznor, I'd like to collaborate with this band called Health, which is more
yeah. They're touring
upcoming
with
and
Perturbata, aren't they?
yeah, I think oh, they were. I don't know if they're touring anymore, but
Okay.
I think they were. I feel like they're cut from the same cloth.
Right.
Lorne, I would love to collaborate with Lorne. That whole like super slow down tempo, like acidy progressive, synthy music. Yeah, those two guys I would definitely love to collaborate with. Who would I love to produce? I'd love to produce a Bjork track or a Bjork record. I think um that would really be interesting. I'd love to
Yeah.
because she works so differently from anyone that I know. She has a way of working that I know it's always challenging for the producers. So that would be an interesting project. And plus she's so creative and she's a goddess. And who would I book to play? Book to play with me or just in general? Aside for
Yeah. Book
Tool.
to who? Yeah. Yeah. If like if you could book someone to play with you, have like a double gig or as a special guest, or support, or that you support them. I mean, if it's
I support them. Um, oh my god. Um, you know, I really okay, so I really okay, so this is gonna come out of nowhere, but I really love Gunship. Gunship is the
okay.
reason why I got into synthwave, or you know,
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah,
but
they're
I
good.
know that
They're really good.
they're really good musicians.
Yeah.
Like that I know, and I've always wanted to see them live. For some reason, they don't play live. So that's the only reason why I would book them so that they could finally play live and so I could see
They'd
it.
have to. Yeah.
Yeah, they have to. And yeah, sure, I'd love to open for them. But yeah.
Cool.
They're
So we've
like,
got
yeah,
Denis Villeneuve for the music video. We've got an assortment of different musicians to collaborate with,
collaborate with.
and yeah, and Gunship for the live show. I think that sounds really good. Um, very interesting.
And
I
also
think it's
probably possible.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just have to manifest it really now, don't you?
Yeah, I have to manifest it now for sure. Um,
Um, yeah, maybe we have another look at a music video. Would you like to play one of yours, or is there something else that you really would like to play? And then before we
um,
close up with the cider story.
sure. Let's play. Let's play one of mine. It's about
Sure,
me
Amy.
today. Let's go play
That's why
one
we're
of
here. That is why we're here.
mine. Yeah. All right. I'll play Atomic.
Wake me from deep slumber, returning back to the source, treading untroubled waters. Release me from artificial form. Subatomic, chemically active, nuclear fission, lies deep within the core. Separate the body from my soul, split the atoms and make me whole. Subatomic, positive, electric, chain reactive, lies deep within my soul. Separate the body, make me whole. Space and time, space and time. Take me to the state I was meant to be destroyed. No constructs that shine me. Real faces shrouded in mystery. Dying in my mind from my body. Subatomic, chemically active, nuclear fission, lies deep within the core. Separate the body from my soul, split the atoms and make me whole. Subatomic, positive, electric, chain reactive, lies deep within my soul. Separate my body, make me whole. Space and time, space and time. Subatomic, chemically active. Subatomic, chemically active. Separate my body, make me whole. Subatomic, chemically active. Separate my body, make me whole. Subatomic, chemically active. Separate my body, make me whole. Subatomic, chemically active. Separate my body, make me whole. Subatomic, chemically active. Subatomic, chemically active. Subatomic, chemically active. Space and time, space and time.
Yeah, from Serena's sophomore album, Arcana, that's Atomic at Infinitium. I hope I pronounced that
Ad
correctly.
initium. Yeah, my
Ad
dad helped me with
initium.
all
Yeah.
my dad helped me with all the Latin stuff. Like he went to what do you call it? That one of those schools where it's like run by priests and then Latin is like an
Okay.
important part of the
Yeah.
curriculum. And so
True.
he could speak and write Latin, and he was making fun of my lyrics actually. He was like, none of it really makes sense, but do what you want.
Yeah. I mean, that's the best approach anyway. Yeah. So it's out today, February
Mhm.
22, on Dark Tunes, and yeah, available as digital. That's the way I bought the album. If I had bought it on CD, there would have been a fair chance that I would have maybe gotten one of your ciders. So what's the deal? And is the cider still available, or are we too late?
Oh, no, we only made 22 bottles of the cider, and it's only for US actually. So even if you got the physical and you entered in the drawing, like there's no way you're gonna get one because there's no international export license yet, for the cider. So it's only US based, because that's like our current limitation for distribution. But yeah, we always so I met Scald Sellers a few years ago, and he created a lot of synth beers actually for a lot of artists in the community. He created the Time Cop beer, and I think he did one for Street Cleaner. But but he's been doing these sweet little projects. He calls it liquid art, for some of the artists, and then like he got introduced to me, and we just actually like hit it off. We became really really good friends, and and like I got to know his entire family. Like I follow his kids on on social media, so it became like such a cool friendship. And then he created the first black rosé cider for the Zarina brand. Like he was like, actually, let me backtrack. I was releasing a music video for my song Blaze from Painted Holograms, and it was such a huge music video because it actually had a lot of synth fam in it. Like Bunny X was in it, Faith and the Glitch was in it. So it was a big deal, and so I wanted to commemorate it, and then I like, asked him like, "Can we do something together?" And then he was like, "Yeah, like, what do you feel like doing?" And I wasn't really like a beer person, even though like that's like one of his specialties. And I was like, "You know what? I really like ciders. I like rosé ciders. I'm not much of a drinker, but I do drink on occasion rosé ciders." And I was like, "Can you make that black? Has that been done before?" Like, can we make it goth black rosé cider? And so he experimented and he was able to create um what we now know apparently is the world's first black rosé cider. And I'm proud to say it has my name, and then and so we he created the first batch and we distributed it during the release of the Blaze Dances of the Yokai music video, through a big event in New York. Everyone came and everyone was talking about the the black rosé cider. And then so I told him, I was like, you know what, it's really cool. I actually have been in contact with a few people about actually making it into a real distributed product in the United States. That's still being worked out. And then for in the meantime, he was like, "Oh, when next time you have a release, let's do it again." So we decided to do an update to the Black Rosé cider, and I told him all about the concept of the music video, like how much I've grown and which direction I've taken my music, my sound, and my art in general. And then and I told him like how a lot of the peripherals were inspired by tarot and celestial maps and all that. So it was like he picked up on all of those like information, and then he created this smoked black rosé cider. So it has a smoke quality now. I think he used olive wood to create that smoky taste. It's sweet and a little sour at the same time. So it's very complex. So it really
Amazing.
embodies the record, like the vibe of the record and the vibe of the growth. It's not, it doesn't taste like juice. Like, most ciders
Yeah.
actually just taste like juice, No, it
Yeah.
actually it tastes like adult. It tastes that there's growth in it. So we made
Amazing.
22 bottles. And really just as a promotion.
Yeah.
You normally I would have a big event, like, around the record release. I'd probably have a show and whatnot, but of course, because we're in strange times right now, I can't do any of that. So I asked him to kind of just like produce, like, a small batch, and whoever picks up the physical copy or the bundles, that came with the record, we'll draw the names from that and then send it as a surprise gift. So
Cool.
we didn't even let them be
Yeah.
let the people know that they were getting one until they just
That's
arrived at
cool.
their door.
Totally. Yeah.
So that
So
was that was a
if I'm watching the show right now and I haven't bought the album yet, but I've decided this is really my cup of tea and I would like to acquire this album. Where do I go?
zarinaofficial.bandcamp.com, to be
Nice.
exact.
And also available on digital, on Dark
Yeah.
Tunes, I guess.
It's on
Amazing.
it's on all streaming platforms.
Very
It's
cool.
on Spotify, to those who are still using Spotify. Um, it's on iTunes. But, I've been trying to push my Bandcamp now. I
Yeah,
neglected my Bandcamp the last couple of years, and I'm trying to make up for it, and it really is the best platform, in my opinion, for
totally. I agree.
music, and should be bigger, actually. But yeah, go support artists on Bandcamp if
Yes,
you like.
support Serena on Bandcamp. And
Support
yeah,
Miles
buy that
Matrix on
album.
Bandcamp.
It's been a real blast chatting to you. It's been really interesting. I mean, we've just been on our own. Imagine if Zen would have been able to make it. We've already managed to feel like 1 hour and 40 minutes, just the two of us. So that probably would have been around 3 hours, a mega show. So
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it too, and we're able to communicate everything you think is important to communicate around your album. Did we
Oh,
miss anything?
no, I think we covered a lot of grounds, and we covered a lot of history. And thank you so much, Miles. Like, and I
Yeah,
really
totally.
appreciate it, and it's nice to have like the tables flipped, like, for this. Because,
Yeah,
like, usually I do all the interviews and then now I'm getting interviewed. But it's so much fun. So much fun just chatting and just walking through the whole
awesome.
journey with you. Yeah, and then I really, really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I enjoyed learning so much about you too because we've known each other now for quite some time. But yeah, one tends not to know that much as we got to know now, and I think this will be really interesting for many who've watched this, and I hope they all enjoyed it as much as I did. And yeah, so let's now exactly now head over to Bandcamp, buy your album, send you to the top of the charts, and so that we can free up your time so you can go on to new endeavors.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you so
Arena.
much. All right,
Have
thank you so
a
much,
good
Miles.
release day and celebrate now with your dog and your husband.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And all of you guys, I'll see you all on social media, and stay in touch with both me and Miles. And as always, thank you for tuning in on Absinthe. Bye.